Hello, this is Mark from I Am NG Organic, and we're standing out in what's left of our tomato row. We planted our 80 tomato plants in our leaf mold slash compost. We basically call it compost because people are more familiar with the word compost instead of leaf mold. But there's nothing in here except leaves that have been just broken down by nature for over a year on their own, and they have good bacteria and fungus and nematodes and arthropods growing in there, and they do very well for tomato plants. But I want to show you here, we did a video last year on this and for composting in our leaf molds in the same area. There was two rows, one that we're on here and there's one over to our right. And what I want to show you is when we've been pulling out the tomato plants, what the root system looks like. Let's get a better shot here, and then I will pull out this root system and lay it on the ground for you. As you can see here, it does very well in the leaf mold. It's amazing. I'm saying it's about anywhere from 2 to 3 feet long. This is just one plant. And let's pull out another one. And you can see how healthy those roots still are. It hasn't rained in probably 2 weeks. They're still nice and white and a lot of side roots, and that's why we get good healthy tomato plants and very tasty tomatoes. I just wanted to give you a better shot of those tomato roots. The variety is called Big Beef, and you can see how well they did in just good old leaf mold. Again, what I like to point out with the leaf mold, we only irrigated once in the beginning of the season because we only had a ½ inch of rain, and I never irrigated again through the whole season. We had plenty of rain for the last 2 months, and then all of a sudden in the last 2 or 3 weeks, everything was still productive. They were still green on it. The tomatoes were doing fine and everything else because of that root system. Don't ever worry how tall your plant ever gets. The most important thing is how big of a root system you have in the ground. The other day, another organic farmer stopped by and he asked me how am I going to pull out all these green stakes that we have in the ground, which you see on your right hand side. There's quite a bit. We probably have over 100 stakes in this one area, plus we have a trellis somewhere else, and that's probably another 50 stakes. We pound them in, and they are difficult to get out, the regular green stakes, so I came up with a little ingenious idea, and I'm going to show you how it's done. You can see hanging from the bucket of the tractor, we took the bucket off the tractor. It's a quick disconnect, so the bucket can just come off real easy and do another attachment. And then you can see here is just a chain with a hook on the end. Now what we did was we just drilled a hole that was going to fit the size of that hook on the end inside the pole, and just basically pull it straight out using the tractor, which I'll show you shortly. Let's get a better view here, and I will hook it up and turn the tractor on. I have the tractor running. It's a little noisy, but you can see how we just inserted the hook into the pole that we drilled a bigger hole into, and it just slides right in there. And quite simple. Chain on top of the bucket, and then we'll just lift up the arm of the bucket and it should work, and pulling straight out. That's simple. Thanks. And since we're on the subject of tomatoes today, I just walked back from the greenhouse. These are not healthy plants by any means. I call these my sacrificial plants. At the end of the season, I'll show you why I do this. But what we have here, and you can see, is that we have no leaves. That's caused by a tomato hornworm. And I found one, and I want to show you why I leave these plants in here to suffer and get eaten. And I will walk over and show you that tomato hornworm. And here he is at the top of the plant, which is about 6 feet tall. And you can see him on the branch. It is that large worm. And if you look at the very end, if you can see it, there's a tail, and that's the horn. So thus the name tomato hornworm. They turn into a large moth. But I wanted to show you, and this is why I'm doing it, is the little white sacs, cocoons or eggs, whatever which way you want to call them, have beneficial wasp in there. Parasitic wasp, and they will chew a hole at the end of that little white cocoon, fly out, lay eggs on another tomato hornworm, and slowly kill that off. And what I'm not worried about is if this hornworm got away from me, what they do is they will either turn into a moth or they will lay eggs in the soil. But since I have all these tomato plants in pots, I will be disturbing that soil and thus ruining their eggs in there too. But I just want to leave this one as a sacrificial one and let it eat the plant so I can have all those predatory wasps or parasitic wasps, that lay their eggs. They actually inject, the small wasp will come along, inject a small egg inside the body along the spine, and that larvae will grow and thus make this cocoon, and from the cocoon will come out a very small wasp. Very neat how nature works. Here we are on the same plant, even with that tomato hornworm, and there's probably another one there too, someplace, but once those wasps come out, they'll find the other tomato hornworm and start laying eggs on it too. But I just want to show you this plant that's suffering. But when it starts to suffer even a little bit, if you have a good root system like I showed before, you can still get great tomatoes off of it. This one right here is just a perfect example. It even ripped the stem and it's doing just fine. Well, I'll probably eat that tonight, and it probably weighs a little less than a pound. But beautiful, and again too, just work with nature. You don't have to spray every time you see something. Just understand it, and you'll find out that everything is beneficial towards you if you do less with just going after pests. If you do anything, you're going to harm more things than you're actually going to help. So just leave everything alone. Let things take a course sometimes, and just keep your soil healthy. And if you have a healthy soil, you're going to have healthy plants. And here we have Swiss chard. What I want to show you here, before I harvest it, I have this order to pull up all these plants to give to a restaurant in town that uses only certified organic food in his restaurant. And what I want to show you here, this is grown in just leaf mold too, just like the tomato plants. And that large plant that I'm going to be harvesting, I'm going to pull that out and then show you the roots on that. The roots of Swiss chards aren't by no way is just as big as, let's say, the tomato plants. But again too, I have never irrigated this area. This is grown in just leaf mold, and the leaf mold is about probably 8 inches thick. Let me go pull this one plant out for you. While pulling it out, I broke off some of the bottom roots, but you can see that main tap root, which is the most important thing for the Swiss chard plant, because that's where it sends out all the other leaves and maintains the health of the plant. And you can see how beautiful that is. Again, this is grown in nothing but leaf mold, and why don't I just push that aside and I'll just dig down in there and I'll show you that there's no dirt. It's just good old-fashioned leaf mold. The hole I dug here, you can just see it's, again, anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of leaf mold, and underneath that is pretty much just solid clay. But the Swiss chard has a great ability to send out tap roots and break through that clay, get its minerals that it needs, and also from the soil biology. And it does extremely well, as you can see, for the rest of the row, which I'll be harvesting shortly.